Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Grieco, here again with another episode of Deep Listens. It is now part 2 of our Life is Strange podcast, and I am joined, as always, by Billy Life is Strange Rothert.
You really, man, you just shit the bed on that.
You phoned that one in, didn't they?
Yep.
They can't all be winners.
Billy, wash your sheets after 2 weeks, Rothert.
That's a better one. Yeah, you can't see it in the background, folks. But yeah, my bed is stripped because I'm a decent human being, and when it's time to wash your sheets, you wash your sheets because every couple weeks you just got to do it.
Circle Billy did some. Hopefully, did some very serious.
Guys. Gotta do it.
Very serious grassroots campaigning for the podcast. So hopefully, we have one newly minted fan at least.
Is that what we call it now? Okay. That other voice we heard is Peter. Authorial intent is for suckers, Busby.
Roland Barthes said it. The author is dead. Foucault followed him up. If anybody believes in authorial intent anymore, I will fight you. You can come to my house and I'll do it.
Thank you for
joining the podcast.
That escalated quickly.
Which is the problem because you've trained in fighting.
I have, and nobody knows where I live, so I'm comfortable making that sort of claim.
You put a lot more skill points into Muay Thai recently.
That's true.
And we are also joined for this special episode by Noelle. I don't want there were only 2 selfie puns. You wanted another selfie pun. Be your selfie.
That's pretty good.
Grieco.
I mean, I feel like it's late for that, but okay.
I know, but it's better late than never.
All right. I apologize if I am froggy and sound weird. I am sick, and that is why. So apologies in advance.
That's why instead of sharing a microphone this week, you are all by your selfie.
Thanks, Gino.
And we're off and running.
Welcome to our Life is Strange podcast. This week we will be discussing chapters 3 through 5. The podcast last week was chapters 1 through 2. So if you want to if you want to hear our discussion of the events of those 2 chapters, catch that episode. We also cover most of the gameplay. The gameplay in chapters 3 through 5, pretty much the same, except for like one section at the end of chapter 5, which is kind of a bummer. But we'll get to that. One thing I just wanted to cover, well, first, if you want to get in touch with the show, at deeplistenspod, deeplistens.libsyn.com, we have comment sections, and you can email us at deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. There's not an at before Deep Listens Podcast. It's deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So, one thing I wanted to discuss quickly in the place where we would usually have gameplay discussion is a kind of interesting little bit of web design that the Life is Strange development team did to correspond with their game. In between episodes 2 and 3, I noticed you actually a weird little thing with Life is Strange is to jump from episode to episode, you actually kind of get pulled back into the main menu, and you have to kind of restart the game in the next chapter, which kind of brings you to this title screen that has a crawl kind of going on the bottom of the menu. On a lot of games, that's where you would expect, like, hey, Dota hats are half price this week, or, hey, we're running a special event this week only. On other types of games, you might expect that kind of information to be told there, or, hey, the new episode of Life is Strange is out. But I don't know if it's just at the beginning of Chapter 3 that this particular line of text comes across, or if this is always there. But after the events of Chapter 2, which spoilers for all of Life is Strange from here on out, but at the end of Chapter 2, there is a suicide attempt, either a suicide attempt or an actual suicide. And at the beginning of Chapter 3, like on the main menu, I noticed that there was a kind of a message that said, if the events depicted in this game or discussed in this game impact you in a personal way, you can talk about it at lifeisstrange.com/talk. And I put that URL in, and it actually has a pretty cool webpage that just says talk to someone, and it has basically a bunch of national flags and then helplines for whatever country you might be playing in. And I don't know if it's every country that Life is Strange was localized for, but it definitely covers most major languages.
Yeah, it's probably definitely most of them.
So, there for the USA, there's AFSP.org for Crisis and Suicide Helpline, and then StompOutBullying.org. There's a British flag. There's a German one. No Japan. But I don't know if it was localized for Japan, so
Yeah.
that could be the reason. But I thought it was very cool for the game to include that kind of stuff, that kind of resource directly in there, especially if they're going to discuss something this heavy. And Noelle, I thought maybe you might have a perspective as someone who works on one of these helplines. Like, do you find that did that impact you at all or stand out to you?
Honestly, I didn't notice it when I was playing the game. But I think it's really good that they have it. And I think it's a very important resource for people to be aware of, especially for something that can be very upsetting, like what's tackled in this video game, and what was tackled in Chapter 2, and also what is tackled later on in
I think it's early
Chapter 4. Is it Chapter 4?
Early
Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. Yeah, so I think it's a good resource, and I think it's important that they put it in. And it really shows their understanding of their subject matter and their audience.
Very cool. So yeah, good on you. Also, Billy, did you say that I was talking to someone, the URL that someone scribbles about Kate's video, that Victoria scribbles on the window, on the mirror in Chapter 2, if you actually go to that URL, there is a YouTube video, and it says the YouTube video has been taken down.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there was an actual video ever up. I searched for it and could not find it, and I'm led to believe that it never actually existed, but just for this like sort of author or like game dev flavor piece, they created a YouTube video and maybe just like instantly removed it just so it would say that. And that's like an out of game like meta prop. I don't know how you would say it otherwise.
Yeah, and I thought that was a little bit of going the extra mile for storytelling.
I mean, they also used actual prescription medication.
They did reference
Chloe
real drugs.
Other people that we'll talk about later.
Yeah. So, all in all, they used outside of the world stuff in real world elements in the game, and then they used game elements in the real world. And I think pretty cool ways to synergize those things without going full on ARG alternate reality games sort of style. So, without further ado, Chapter 3. So we start Chapter 3. Billy, do you want to set us up with start at Chapter 3 or?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll just get us going. So the first thing, I'm trying to remember exactly how this starts because I know what happens, but I don't remember what the exact starting point is. What's the first event in Chapter 3?
You wake up in Max's room.
Okay, yeah. So
Basically.
you wake up in Max's room and you get a text from Chloe saying, "Hey, come downstairs. Like let's go do stuff." More investigation on the recent weird events that have been happening in Arcadia Bay. More investigation on what's going on with Nathan and other potential suspects. But essentially, a couple things happen. You go with Chloe, and you make your way into the school.
Yeah. Where
you start looking for more clues or evidence that might be able to assist you. One of the first things that you do is go into the principal's office. What's up? Did I miss something?
No, there's just some stuff I wanted to catch.
Yeah, okay. I was just like generally like getting into the story. They say they're going to go to the principal's office to try to find clues. You have access to a couple of other rooms like the art room, the science room, but you essentially have Chloe taking David's keys and getting Chloe and Max into the principal's office.
Yeah.
Or into the school. That's what they're doing for clues. We're looking for clues basically in Chapter 3.
Yep. One of the cool things that jumped out to me when you're in Max's room is that because name of girl.
Kate.
Because Kate's either in the hospital or deceased by this point, you have her rabbit, which I thought it tugged at my heartstrings personally as someone who owns a rabbit. But you can feed the bunny which I thought was adorable. And it's a nice touch that even though this person is either gone or kind of decommissioned, life doesn't stop for all of her things. Like, people all need to step up and take care of things like a pet. And I thought it was a nice little touch to remind you of, even if a catastrophe didn't happen, there is still a bit of your life that is just kind of knocked out of whack one way or another. And you also learn that the teacher is an alcoholic here.
The principal.
The principal, yeah. The principal.
Yeah.
Principal Wells is stumbling around outside, drunk, off his ass. Which is not great. It's not a great look, stumbling around outside the dorms, yelling. But what do you know?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Considering all the shit that's gone down around Arcadia Bay and the school itself, considering we almost had an attempted suicide. Well, in my timeline, I had an attempted suicide, and in some of you guys' timeline, there was a student death.
Natural, yeah.
And he was at the steering wheel of this school, so.
yeah. It was implied earlier in the game, and people have, like, some of the students said that he had a problem, but that was the first evidence that he might, like, really, that's not just students being snide.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Chloe steals David's keys. You go with Chloe into the school. In order to gain access to the principal's office, you try to find some keys, but there aren't some keys. You know, the keys aren't just readily available. So Max comes up with a bright idea to make a pipe bomb.
Yep.
As you do.
Genius plan.
Yep.
She asks Warren for some help to make a pipe bomb.
Who knows how to build a pipe bomb, like, pretty readily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, yo, here you go. And then
Don't worry, I got you.
he draws
No
a
questions.
diagram.
I knew everything that Warren knew without having to look it up, so it's not that weird.
I mean, it's a little weird.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if that's the conclusion
All
I
right.
would draw.
now you're on a watch list, but okay.
I'm a little concerned.
Whatever
but-
you say, man. All I learned there was that Warren is down. He's down for anything.
I think Warren's just down for Max.
Yeah, he's down for
This
anything
is true.
Max related.
Exactly. But he, like, no red flags for him. He's like, what do you
Nope.
want, girl? Anything? Okay.
I got you.
Ride
Well, she
or
was all
die.
like, hey, so like hypothetically, what if somebody wanted to construct a bomb? Just, like just as purely theoretical. And it was like, okay, I'll draw you a diagram.
Hypothetically, if you wanted to make someone disappear, how would you do it, Warren? Well, I don't
Well,
know.
first I'd get some electrical tape.
Thanks,
Then
Warren.
I'd get some potassium nitrate.
I
It
mean,
can
it's like-
usually be found in plant fertilizer.
But he's just like, here's the instructions for a pipe bomb. Now, what about that drive-in movie?
Let's
Let's
go
go
ape.
Ready to
man.
go ape?
Oh. Yeah, so that's a weird sequence. Though being in the school after dark is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hard to see, but cool.
Yes. You make the pipe bomb, and then you get to do some cool time trickery where you pipe bomb it. That sets off the fire alarm, but then you kind of go in the principal's office and rewind time so that you don't set off the pipe bomb, and you never made the pipe bomb.
No.
Oh
But
no,
you're
you
inside.
made it. I think what they're saying is like you made it, but like you never used it. I guess maybe it's never in your inventory or it's out of your like maybe
No,
you have
because
the
Chloe
raw
doesn't
ingredients.
even know how you got in there.
Yeah, Chloe doesn't know, but I
Yeah,
think
what-
what happens is you maybe have the ingredients on you still because you can't when you rewind that sequence. I was surprised that you only oh shit, that's hard to explain. When you do the rewind, it shows you a little curly cue of like how far back you can go. There's a dot on it where your last critical event is, and that's where the pipe bomb exploded. And that was like your max range. So if we're gonna believe the story's mechanics, you probably had all that gear on you still, just didn't assemble the thing.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
what's the experience like for the people around Max?
She's just
like-
jumping all over the place.
Is it like
We
would it
shouldn't
look like
get into that.
teleportation?
Without drawing diagrams of like a four-dimensionalist time model, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Pick up the
I
show.
want to talk about that, but it would derail the entire fucking podcast. So let's just move on.
But I think,
So we'll just say it looks like teleportation.
yeah, she's teleporting.
Yeah,
around.
sure.
Okay.
It looked like that scene in Donnie Darko where like the liquid worms come out of people's chests.
That's a stupid fucking movie.
I hope that's not what it looks like.
Great fucking movie.
I hope it's just some twitchy nonsense. Like Max is just here, then she's there.
Like she's buffering or something.
Yeah, like Like if you're trying to watch an animal that's way too fast for your eyes moving around, it just looks like they're a stop motion thing.
My question is, they were all in the photography classroom when Kate was about to jump off the building, and then magically, Max was on top of the building also. No one found that weird. No one was like, "You were here 2 seconds ago, and now you're up there."
Yeah,
she was the brave one.
She's weird.
She was the brave one. No one else. Anyone could have been up there. She was the only one who had the guts to do it.
That was the only thing with guts.
Yes. So I mean, I guess the in-story explanation is everyone's looking at Kate and they are not concentrating on anything else, which is fair. I guess if you're going to use her powers in a big showy way like that with the whole school kind of watching, that's kind of got to be the situation. But
like, I don't think the game has thought the time travel through all that closely.
No, but I don't think it matters really for the story they're trying to
tell. But those
tell.
Butterflies,
I'm going to complain about it later.
That's fine.
As a person who studied time travel as like one of my main disciplines in college, I'm okay with ignoring the fact that there are time travel problems here. This game is not actually about time travel.
All right, we have Billy's stamp of approval, so we can proceed.
Thank goodness.
Similarly, like in the same way that Talos Principle is not a game about religion.
That's just patently not true.
This game is not about time travel.
It's a completely false analogy.
That was like shout out to our OG listeners, because that was like a fucking year and a half ago podcast that we did. So if you get that old argument, props for listening to us for this long. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I totally get it, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Noelle.
Our old listeners get it, and they know that one of the characters' names is Elohim, and they know.
They get it.
It's fine.
All right.
So
we're in the principal's office.
Yep, you get in the principal's office. You get access to all of these files. You can look at Chloe's file. Turns out she was a shit student.
No way.
But
got expelled because she's a rebel. Rachel Amber was real smart, and then she just vanished. And it looks like the police have given up looking for her. Nathan has 2 records. He's got one record that's like the public record, and one record that's the secret principal record. Like the public record says he's a good student who's a fine example of the school, and then the secret record's like, this kid's fucking nuts.
That's all it says.
We need help. Help. It just says this kid is nuts, and then help with 3 exclamation points.
And then it has some nice examples of how he is nuts.
Yeah, but
like the drawing with words.
Yeah, the Rachel in the
dark
room.
Rachel in the dark room, Rachel in the dark room, Rachel in the dark room, like 7,000 times.
Yeah. Oh, what is this drawing? And then it's like, oh no, these are sentences.
These are sentences, and they're super creepy.
The darkest sentences.
And no one wants this.
Yeah. So I think those are all the records you get to see. Oh, you can see Warren's record
too.
And
Kate's.
Yeah. And Kate's. Yeah. So you get to read about all of your friends and enemies. And you get enough evidence to basically justify, continuing your investigation. And then Chloe decides that now is a really great time to break into the school pool at night and go swimming. Which is...
Yep.
It's like, in terms of intelligent, like we're trying to solve this dangerous case, probably a real dumb choice.
We actually missed one of the major choices in the game.
Oh, go ahead. Which one?
When you're in the principal's office, you can choose to take the money or leave the money.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So you're offered. I took it.
I did not.
I did
it's
not.
A handicap fund, Billy.
Yeah.
So I was. So to flesh this out, you were given the choice once you finish sort of like ransacking the office and you elect to leave. Chloe does one last thing. She opens a drawer, finds an envelope full of $5,000.
Labeled handicap fund.
Labeled handicapped fund. 2 things. One, I think that the devs of the game didn't flesh that out very well. They just wanted to say, God, what would be guilty? Just throw some darts on the wall. Fund. All right, like a fund. Handicap. All right, that'll make him feel bad about taking it. I mean, it could have said like music program development, or like,
no,
anything
but
that
it makes sense later on.
Yeah. But they had to do that in chapter 3 when we don't know. it seemed really sloppily put together.
Fun to rebuild little Jimmy's house.
Right.
Like it could have been anything. So I just saw it as, all right, be guilty or don't be guilty. And at this point, I wanted to pursue the relationship that might have been possible with Chloe. It seemed like we were getting into some Chloe Max tension, and I was like, if I were the character that I have portrayed so far as Max, I would probably do this, which is a hard to trace back, distant and not like it's pretty far removed impact at this point of the choice tree, and do something that will make Chloe like me more.
So basically, Warren was cool
Peer
with
pressure.
making pipe bombs to get Max's affection, and you were cool with stealing from the handicap to get Chloe's affection.
It's more like you get some choices to get more Chloe affection earlier in the game. Like for when you say, like, you have the option to take blame for her weed. And that's a way more relevant and like danger close choice to make. This one is still a bad choice that makes Chloe like you, but the impacts, the butterfly effect or whatever, aren't going to resonate as close to Max.
Okay.
That's why I felt that's why I felt more comfortable making this bad choice to earn Chloe's favor, as opposed to another bad choice that if I were really going to put myself in Max's shoes, I wouldn't take blame for that weed. That could ruin my entire college career.
So Billy, the way you're portraying Max then was as both a thief and a coward.
Essentially at that point, but
also
not so
kind
much
of a game theory sociopath.
Yep. You guys just nailed me personality-wise. Thief, coward, game theory, sociopath.
Nailed it.
So now that we've got that,
AKA Rothgar.
Then we've
So
got
then
that
we
out
went
of the way.
swimming.
So looks like 3 people here made the right choice. 1 person made the wrong choice. What can you do? So then we go to the swimming pool, and you break in after dark. You can go into both of the locker rooms. There's a very important choice. Do you go into the boys' locker room or the girls' locker room?
Ooh.
Actually makes no difference whatsoever.
Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, you can go into the other one
You
later.
can go in both.
Zero impact altogether.
So yeah, you get to read a little bit more about some of the students. You find out Zachary is a little bit tortured about knocking a girl up and then abandoning her.
Oh,
So-
poor thing.
He gets a little more humanization there, but not like a lot.
Like a tiny note.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
and
My bad.
there's some great graffiti in all of the stalls that seem to only care about Victoria, Max, Nathan, and like occasionally Warren.
Yeah, weird. Only people we've met and like know intimately. That's an odd coincidence.
What can you do?
And Kate.
Yeah,
It's
There's
not-
some Kate.
Okay, it's kind of odd, I guess, but if I had to justify it from the dev's perspective, if you were actually in there, you wouldn't really pay attention to anybody else's stuff other than the characters that are close to you. The fact that we had to have this sort of suspension of disbelief that only their shit is written on the wall, they probably could have made it more clear if they had written some graffiti that didn't make any sense to us, that had no context at all.
yeah. I mean,
I'd be very interested to see what was happening with all the other students.
in the guys'
Even though
locker
I'm pretty sure there's only like a few, because you're in like the dormitories and there's only the few people that you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, in the guys' locker room too. If we wanted accuracy, there should have been a lot more pictures of dicks.
There should have been a lot more dicks on the wall.
Yeah, like I mean, that goes without saying, though. Really,
there was hardly any hate speech on that boys' locker room.
I know. Pretty big oversight by the devs.
What can you do? They're based in France. They don't know. So, we went into the pool. You turn on the lights, and then Chloe and Max like strip down to their underwear and then jump in the pool.
Oh, but also before that, when you're exploring, because I decided to go into the boys' locker room,
Mhm.
You can look at Nathan's locker, and you see his medication.
What are his medications?
And yes, I looked it up. Don't worry. Hold on.
Because I have my guess at what his psychological issue is, but I don't.
Okay, wait. Tell me your guess, and then I'll tell you.
I'm guessing he's bipolar, but I'm not sure.
I might have said schizophrenic.
I-
Do you want to throw your hat in the ring?
He's a fucking asshole. That's his mental disorder.
that's not a diagnosis.
He can be
Next
both.
try.
He can be bipolar and an asshole.
Next time I see a therapist, no, you're just an asshole. Get out of here.
That's going to be what I just say to my patients later on in life. So he had risperidone. I'm going to assume that's how you say it. And it treats either schizophrenia, bipolar disorder,
Ah, damn it.
or irritability caused by autism.
I thought you were going to say IBS for the last one. Like, what a weird confluence of treatments.
No. And he also had diazepam, which is for anxiety mostly, but also muscle spasms and seizures.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Checks out.
So
I
we're
think the
both right.
autism would be an interesting
Yeah.
thing because of his inability to really connect with other people.
Yeah, his sociopathy seems to be a little bit like how he's been raised, and then a little bit he just doesn't seem to regard other people as equal human beings who deserve respect.
It's his affluenza.
Ugh.
Did that hurt or something?
It hurt when he said that.
Want to talk about it?
No, I don't. I just want to talk about late night pool.
All right. So they get naked.
They get naked.
Am I
and go on the
naked?
pool.
Mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. Just bras and underwear.
Yeah, bras and underwear, and then they splash each other. And,
Like so cute, guys.
yeah, they have otters. They have an extended otter versus shark metaphor. Chloe's a shark. Max is an otter. And then they just kind of have a good time, which it's. You know, I think in terms of storytelling, it doesn't make a ton of sense for them to stop and have a fun time in the pool after dark. But in terms of just being like teenagers in high school, I think it makes a ton of... It fits that sort of genre. All of a sudden, this game kind of becomes a teen... If not teen horror... It's kind of teen horror, right? You're going to get caught after dark by...
Sort of.
By a security person. It kind of becomes that teen horror kind of trope. But I think it's a nice little foray into another genre.
Especially after such a heavy episode.
Yeah.
Leading up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're going to develop this sort of relationship possibility, like at some point you got to do it.
Yeah. You got to have a moment where they can really be alone and
Yeah.
have some fun. But it's also nice to just have the moment be them alone having fun, kind of innocent fun. Whereas I feel like in a lot of the games, including the games we've played, romance is kind of with a capital R. Like when stuff's going to happen, it's like there's no entendre. It's just talking about openly sexual interests, like in Mass Effect, for example. Oftentimes you don't have moments, especially in Mass Effect 1, where characters are just kind of enjoying each other's company. And I think that it's a nice kind of bit of evidence of their relationship growing or rekindling in this case.
Yeah.
So you get chased by David, Chloe's dad. You use your time powers to get out of there. And then you escape the school and retreat to Chloe's house. At which point you crash in Chloe's room and wake up the next morning and have like fun bed like talk, but like friend
Pillow talk.
But like friend pillow talk, like, you know, what are we gonna do? What's going on with our lives, sort of stuff.
And then it gets kind of creepy.
Yeah, and then it gets kind of creepy. Pete, what's so creepy?
So Chloe kind of pretty much dresses you up in her dead friend / love interest's clothes. She does a little Rachel cosplay, basically.
Why is that weird?
Well, to be fair, she doesn't know that her friend is dead at this point.
Yeah, I guess I did.
I mean, but she knows that she's definitively not like around anymore.
Yeah, it's creepy because it seems like she's trying to replace Rachel with Max.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
That's what creeped me out about this whole thing. And then it also creeped me out a little bit that Max was kind of into it.
Yeah.
Max seemed totally cool about it.
It took a distinct turn, too, when... I mean, not that Chloe daring Max to kiss her is wrong on the surface by any means, But when it comes right after the moment when she puts on Rachel's clothes, it takes on a distinct overtone beyond just sort of like playful flirting, I guess it would be normally.
Yeah, and that is one of the big things. The next big choice is, do you kiss Chloe? Yes, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot that it's right after you put her
Yeah, I also didn't make that connection.
ex love interest's clothes, but yeah.
Yep.
That whole sequence is really weird. And the justification is that Chloe is bigger than Max, so her clothes would not fit, but Rachel is the same size as Max.
Yeah, and Max is still smell like chlorine.
Yeah, so she can't go back to school or she'd get busted. But
Yep.
she's way
And
into Rachel's
everyone
clothes.
knows that the washing machine doesn't work.
Nope.
That would just be ridiculous.
Yep. So what were the decisions? Who kissed Max? Who kissed Chloe? Who kissed Chloe?
I kissed.
I totally
I
kissed Chloe.
did.
Everyone kissed Chloe.
She dared.
Who's
What was
gonna
I to do?
who's gonna not kiss Chloe in that situation? Like, honestly,
Did anybody experiment with not kissing Chloe?
No.
I
consider it.
actually kissed Chloe, and then I went back just to see what would happen if I didn't
And she
kiss
calls you out for saying, you know what, you probably kissed me and then rewound time.
her. Yeah.
Didn't kiss me. Like, she straight calls you out on
And then
if
I was
you don't
like,
kiss
no,
her.
I'm rewinding time again, so take that.
She's like, you probably did it and then turned back time and didn't do it.
Nah.
Little perv.
Did anyone kiss her, then rewind time, then kiss her again, then rewind time, then...
That would be
No,
me.
just me?
Like 3 hours later,
Oh.
Gino is like bleary-eyed from his room.
And it's the most non-romantic kiss. It's just like a
Yeah,
little...
you like barely touch.
Yeah.
them,
Yeah, just a
probably.
peck.
Yeah,
And,
it's...
and Chloe seems really taken back by the situation. It's like, what did you think would happen exactly?
Yeah, I think she thought she was just going to be so edgy that Max wouldn't do it. Or she thinks Max is too square to do it. And so Max is like, nah, I'm down.
Yeah, I was like, don't patronize me, Chloe.
Yeah, don't ask for things unless you're ready.
Don't tell me how to live my life.
So once you get over making out with your best friend, you can go downstairs, you get breakfast. Joyce makes you breakfast, and you spy on David some more.
For funsies.
Yep, for funsies. And this one, let's see, what are the big pieces of information you get from that bit of spying? You get into his computer,
Mm-hmm.
and then you find a bunch of emails and files and stuff that he's been looking at people and following them around. Just some more...
Yeah.
Some more stuff like he thinks Nathan's
Yeah,
maybe
general
up to
creepiness.
something, Kate's
Yeah.
up to something.
Yeah.
He's got no
Drugs? Question mark? Question mark?
Question mark? Yeah, it says it for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
Drugs? Question mark?
Kate came out of the bathroom crying. Drugs? Question mark?
Drugs?
Yeah, she takes more time in the bathroom than normal students.
Drugs?
Drugs?
She went to church today. Drugs?
Drugs? What's in that Sacramento wine?
Drugs?
She knows her Bible.
Yeah. So you get those little tidbits of furthering David's paranoia. After getting a little bit more evidence, you head over to the Two Whales, to the diner, and this time you are trying to get into Frank's RV because...
Wait, you missed another
Oh.
big thing.
Which
You get into a fight with them, and you can either
Oh,
side
yeah.
with David or side with Chloe.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So you get into this sort of confrontation at the house, and you sort of bring up all this shit, like, "Hey, David, what the fuck? This weird ass surveillance." And David seems to like almost threaten to hit Chloe again.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets super
And
That's real tense.
you can either side with David or side with Chloe. Obviously,
Why
sided
anyone
with
would
Chloe.
side with David?
Yeah.
I
Did
don't
anyone
understand.
side with David?
No.
Do I have
Has
to
anyone ever sided with David?
Do I have to drop someone
Only
from this
just-
call?
Technically, the very first time you can side with David is when you can take a picture of him harassing Kate or not take a picture. And I technically didn't take a picture, so that's like your first like siding with David. And so I technically sided with David the very first option,
But
but
it's
we
like-
had not enough evidence that he was a total douchebag at that point.
Yeah, one's
But
fair.
it's either you take a picture of him or you confront him. So either way, you're not siding.
Oh yeah, you're right. I did step in, and tell him up. Yeah, okay, yeah. So fuck David.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that there's a universe where he slaps his daughter, even if that's not the universe we lived in. So
Yeah,
we knew he was kind of a dirtbag. He had spy cameras all over his house. He's
That
done
was
nothing to earn you standing up for him at this point.
Nope.
And having seen the scene where you do defend him, not because I did it, but because I saw someone else's playthrough,
Likely story.
it's not really convincing. There's not really a good reason for Max to try to keep this family together.
She's like, guys, come on.
He only had a few cameras.
He was only watching you while you slept, not while you were awake.
There were none in the
That's
bathroom.
basically what Santa does. Come on.
Come on, let's be cool. Let's let him stay.
Cool about
And
it. Would
Chloe,
just be cool.
Chloe, you need to settle down. Stop smoking the reefer cigarettes. Even though it is really cute.
Wink.
Wink, wink.
So, 2 whales.
Yes, to the 2 whales.
So yeah.
We are trying to get into Frank's
But
art.
wait,
yes.
hold on.
Yep.
So that Joyce kicks
David out. Yeah.
David out.
David out, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
David's
so-
gone.
David's out.
Bye, David.
You can make him stay in his home, but fuck that guy. At least
Yeah,
this
no.
far. At least this far in the game, fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
Mhm.
So you go to the 2 whales. We good? We're going to the 2 whales? Anyone else? Okay, cool.
Nope.
Sorry.
Let's get breakfast.
We're good. So you go to the 2 whales. You are trying to get into Frank's RV because when you last saw him, he had Rachel's bracelet on, and Chloe's like, "What the hell? Why do you have my headcanon girlfriend bracelet on?" Because it's unclear if Chloe and Rachel were ever actually romantically involved, or if Chloe just had a big crush on her. But you go to the diner, and in the diner is Frank, a cop.
Eating beans.
Yeah, Frank eating the grossest pile of beans. It looked like chocolate pancakes that went real bad.
Yeah, they were
It
just
looked like
bad
a
on that.
mushed up chocolate chip cookie that didn't cook all the way.
Yeah.
And then it was just like pretty much dough.
But nope, beans.
Can I get the nastiest plate of just beans? $2, right?
What else do you want? Anything? Nope, just beans.
Beans and sadness, please. One order. So there's Frank, there's a cop, and then there's Nathan. And you kind of have to talk to each of them to figure out the right combination of words to get Frank to show you his keys so you can steal them from him and then rewind time and just have his keys. So you basically need to find out that Frank and Rachel were really in love, and Frank has a picture of Rachel that he carries around with him all the time. Once you name drop Rachel and the picture, he will take out the picture to show you, like, look, this is my girl, isn't she beautiful? And then you steal his keys like an asshole. But for a good cause.
Yeah.
So then you take the RV keys, you open up the RV, and then you get the most important choice in the game. His dog jumps out, and you have to choose whether to throw a bone to distract the dog by throwing it into the street or into a parking lot full of parked cars. Did anyone harm the dog?
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
Okay, good. We don't
I
have to-
sensed a hesitation, Peter.
I thought about it, but I didn't.
I didn't think
I
about
want to
it.
examine this
Yeah,
a
I
little
would
bit.
never think about it.
I
It
thought
seemed like
about it after immediately not choosing it, because when we think about film and storytelling in general, the number one way to create a villain is to have them hurt an animal. Essentially, kicking a dog is the number one way to create a bad guy that basically everybody's going to hate from the start of the movie or start of the game or whatever. So the fact that we would even have this choice is almost uniquely different from all the other bad choices we might have. This is one of the most villainous choices of the whole game.
It's
Billy, you already stole from handicapped orphans.
But I didn't hurt a dog.
You're right. You're right.
those handicapped orphans were humans. Their suffering doesn't matter.
This is a pupper we're talking about here. Doggo.
All I know is literally the night before I watched John Wick and I saw what happened when you mess with someone's dog.
John Wick's a great movie too. Shout out to
movie.
John Wick.
But also, never fuck with someone's dog.
Yeah, and I assumed that hurting his dog would only come back to bite me. Haha. But it was pretty clear that dog was less dangerous than the dude what took our gun and has a knife.
Yeah.
Now who needs to get dropped from the call?
But also, don't hurt a dog.
Fair.
Never-
Moving on.
So you go.
I feel like this doesn't need to be examined much more.
No, just don't do it. Listeners, don't throw the bone into the street.
Listeners, don't harm a dog ever, or a cat,
Or a cat.
or any type
Most
of
animals. Or people.
Also, like, probably not humans.
Yeah, just don't do a lot of harming. Let's just full stop.
So you go into the RV and you look for clues. In the RV, you can find Chloe's gun if the gun was taken from you, and you can give it back to her if you choose. I chose to leave the gun in the RV because Chloe, yet again, seemed more dangerous to herself with a gun than other people having that gun.
So I think I didn't get that choice because I never lost the gun in the first place.
Yeah, then it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, I didn't get that choice at all, I think.
Yeah, I found it in one of his cabinets. So you eventually get, I think you use a knife to pry open a vent, and you
Yep.
find a journal that
Yep.
has all of the kind of interactions between Rachel and Frank, and you find out how much that, one, Rachel and Frank were not just friends, they were dating.
Yep.
And two, they were really serious.
Yeah, Rachel
until
really
she
seemed to
van-
love Frank.
Yeah, until she vanished. And Chloe does not take this well.
No.
Nope.
She takes this as yet another betrayal in her life.
Shockingly enough, she does not take secrets well.
Despite all the coping skills we've seen from her thus far.
Yep. So you basically give her this news, and she does not want to really deal with it. But once you kind of deal with that, you throw Frank's keys onto the top of a building. Because fuck that guy. And you start driving away, and Chloe starts venting that basically ever since her dad passed away, everyone's been betraying her and letting her down. And it started with her dad letting her down by dying. And that scene is very rough. Was it the same for
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Sucks.
I mean, it was definitely, but I mean, at a certain point, I definitely felt for Chloe, but I'd be like, well, listen, your dad didn't let you down.
Yeah, you just
He
died.
wasn't just to hell with Chloe. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
I think we need to be careful with that interpretation because if she's a teenage girl,
What are you trying to say about girls?
we can't just say hey, all right, you're right. But as a person who in my career, the demographic that I work with is primarily female students, ages 8 to 15. I do have maybe a pretty solid secondhand insight into what makes them uncomfortable and nervous based on what my academic and career skill set is. So when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about a person who is in a place in their life where they are internalizing a lot of things on themselves if they don't go very well for them, and someone passing away through no fault of their own or through maybe no fault of that person. Because we don't get a ton of details about Chloe's dad's death. It's a car accident, right?
Yeah, he's in a car accident.
But we don't know if he was drinking and driving or if it was a terrible misfortune.
Okay, we
or
know he wasn't drinking and driving.
So we don't have details about it. That could be seen as maybe from her perspective, he was irresponsible in some way, and he should have been more careful to come home to her. That's if I were maybe in her shoes and feeling this way, I could be twisting those facts to support my case that everyone's been working against me.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
that was.
we can be.
Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, we can be both sympathetic and point out the shittiness of her reasoning, though.
Yeah, and that was my main thing. Was I understood exactly where she was coming from. I understood exactly her motivations and what she was trying to avoid. She was kind of avoiding blaming herself for some of this stuff, and externalizing some of her problems into someone who could not defend himself. But at the end of the day, took a lot of choices in that dialogue to just kind of say, Chloe, like, get your shit together. You need to stop blaming other people. Like, some of this stuff is your doing. And I understand some of this stuff is bad, but it's not going. Blaming other people is not going to make your life better. She didn't like that. She didn't want to hear that.
How about get over it?
She also blames you for leaving. She blames Rachel for leaving. And it's really a gut-wrenching scene. And it basically is immediately followed by Max gaining access to a picture of... Actually, I think you got the picture earlier that morning of...
her mother gave it to you at breakfast.
Of Chloe and Max the morning that William, Chloe's biological father, passed away. And you discover a strange new power when you get back to your room. You can look at the picture and by focusing on it, rewind time and jump back, do some quantum leap stuff. You jump back into your body in that moment when it happened. So you can jump back into, I guess, when you were 12 or 13.
Into the room where it happened.
Yes, into the room where it happened. But you cannot leave the room. You were in that moment, both physically and temporally. So you basically get a do-over. You get a chance to save William. And there's no choice there. You have to save William to advance the story. Like, you can't make a high-minded choice about whether he should live or die.
Just play God for a few moments. I decide your fate, William.
Yeah. So you save him, and then you go back. And I thought it was pretty cool the way they have you save him. Like, you try different things. You unplug his phone. You take his keys. Maybe, he has the buzzer, so he finds his keys.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a nice little bit of gameplay there. But then once you save him, you go forward in time, and at the end of the episode, you go...
Gino, why... I'm sorry to interrupt, but why wouldn't you take that opportunity to say you go back to the future?
That's a great point. I'm sorry. You should... Okay, you're the host now. You've slain me. Your puns have outpunned me. You're the host now.
I have the conch.
Well, Pete, you're the host. You're what?
You have the talking.
So at that point, you go back to the future, and you find that, oddly enough, changing the past has consequences.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, I know.
You're friends with Victoria, the darkest timeline.
That's the worst fate there.
And Nathan. Not just
now,
Victoria.
friends, you are part of the vortex.
Maxine, you've been acting so strange. I'm Max.
Never Max. Only Max.
Never Maxine.
So you're flabbergasted. You're aghast at this turn of events. So you run off to go find Chloe. You open the door, and happy days, William greets you. He's there to open it. But you find soon after, when he calls Chloe to the door, that she is paralyzed from the neck down. She had an accident of her own, rolled her car that William gave her as a gift when she got her, I think it was on her 16th birthday when she got her driver's license or something. So Chloe's father is alive, but she herself is paralyzed now.
Yes. And so
what have we learned?
Don't fuck with the past.
Yep.
Also that the universe does not want Chloe to have a nice existence.
No, the universe...
Yeah, the universe is very against Chloe.
The universe really doesn't want her to have a good time. Also, by changing the past, the events of that week have still transpired. The snow still happened. There is still and when you're walking, you go out with Chloe on a walk, and there are beached whales everywhere. So
we've also gone into episode 4 at this point.
Yeah, well, at the end of episode 3, you see the beached whales, and then at the beginning of episode 4,
no, you see them like when you're driving to Chloe's.
Oh, right.
And then it ends with you seeing Chloe.
And then
it
episode
goes
4, you go on a walk with Chloe around the beached whales.
Mm-hmm.
This is like one of the first major choices in episode 4 we're getting up to right now.
All right, Pete, the host.
Oh man, I never should have made that awesome joke. This is way too much responsibility.
Look what you've done.
The only thing the only major plot development I remember is after you go back to her room. So
Okay.
somebody
Well,
else should probably fill in before that.
Well, there's one big point in that sort of alternate timeline, which is you can choose to assisted suicide Chloe or not.
There's other stuff first before
That's
that.
the one
Yes.
That's the next one I remember.
Okay,
I do remember you have to find her more.
Oh, sorry.
I'm taking the
I
reins.
think Gino's taking back.
I'm taking back the reins. This is
I'm only good for puns. I can't
amateur
maintain
hour
the
over here.
podcast flow.
So you head back to Chloe's house after you go on your walk. You kind of get a quick recap of everything that's happened in this timeline in Chloe's life.
Yeah.
And you find out that just like in the regular timeline, Max, as soon as she left for Seattle, did not keep in touch with Chloe the way she should have. But it's way shittier because Chloe was paralyzed and Max knew about it. So instead of calling or visiting, even after coming back to Arcadia Bay, she just sends postcards of all the cool shit she was up to while Chloe was stuck back at home, which is extra
shitty.
And also letters.
Yeah.
Because what's better than a letter? A lot of things.
A lot of things.
Like a face-to-face visit.
Skype, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things.
Whatever.
But you head back to Chloe's house, and you can kind of explore the house anew with William there. It turns out they are intensely in debt because their insurance only partially covers stuff. This game has got a lot of contemporary American politics going on in a weird way, with this town that's slowly losing industry and health insurance gone crazy. Global warming discussion.
Everybody has guns. Like everybody.
Everyone's strapped. This game's weirdly topical.
Do you remember what the actual number was? Did they say like 1 million a year? They mentioned like an actual figure at some point.
Of what? How many guns people have?
How much? Of what Chloe's yearly medical costs are.
Yeah, it's like 1 million. It's a lot of money.
That's a ton.
So they mortgage their house. You see letters from William to other people, or responses to William, because I guess he's been asking relatives for money to help pay for Chloe's treatment, and most of them can't provide very much. And you eventually go down to Chloe's room. In there, you find some kind of cool, like, nods to kind of the reality of being paralyzed from the neck down.
Yeah, you'd say assistance technologies. Yeah. I'd probably call them.
Like her computer. She has a computer that she can operate using her mouth, which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Like, they have all of the different life support systems that she needs. Her like chairs and things to help her get in and out of her chair. But she asks you to go and get a morphine. You stay the night, you hang out, you watch a movie, and it's Blade Runner, which is a pretty good one. It turns out in this universe, she's
no
super.
John Wick, but okay.
It's no John Wick, but she's super nerdy in this universe, and is way into cyborgs and sci-fi. And also another. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I'm just saying it would make sense from like a transhumanist perspective.
Yeah.
Like she would probably think about those sort of augmentations, repairs.
Yeah, and another little detail that you can see is when you go outside, William got to paint their house, which is kind of cool. You get to see what their house would look like if it was taken care of properly. And the mural that is constantly outside, you can get like a new piece of dialogue every time you're over Chloe's house. But in this universe, Chloe asked William to move it so that she could see the mural her and Max drew from her room at all times, which I thought was a nice little touch. And Chloe does not know Rachel in this universe at all. So
Chloe barely had any friends.
Yes, she basically had no friends, and Max. This is the first time Max has shown up in years.
And she went to what's the school called again?
Blackwood.
Blackwell.
Isn't it
so she went to Blackwell.
Blackwell, that's it. Blackwell.
Yeah, she went to Blackwell, and basically the principal was like, "We don't really have the things to support you."
Because Billy stole the money.
Because Billy stole all the money. And then she was like, "Well, so much for the money that I didn't let Chloe steal for the handicap fund." So that's comes full circle.
Yeah. So you sleep over, you wake up the next morning, and Chloe asks you to get a morphine drip for her because she's got a nasty headache. She's been having increasingly bad headaches due to her condition. So you can get the morphine drip, and when you come back, she basically tells you, I'm costing my family a ton of money, and my respiratory system is failing. And you can find that out from some of the different items throughout her house. You can find a doctor's note basically explaining as much. But
She also has like a tube coming out of her neck.
yeah.
Yeah, she can't breathe on her own.
So like that's evidence enough for me.
Well, she never
That
could
breathing is
because of
hard.
her neck injury. But
Yeah.
even with the assistance, her respiratory system is failing anyway. So she is likely to die soon due to just natural causes. And she says, look, you coming back today was like the most joy I've had in a very long time, and I'd like this to be my last memory. And so she asks you to dial up the morphine drip.
To 11.
Yes. So
Probably I thought this was the toughest decision in the game.
yes. And before we discuss the decision itself, because I want to talk about that a lot, one thing that I thought was a shortcoming of the mechanics, of the choice mechanics, when you are given a choice, it gives you the button prompts you're allowed to make. But it plays this dramatic, like, dun-dun sort of music when you're making the choice to add tension. And this was a moment that I didn't need dramatic tension.
Yeah, there was certainly enough of it already.
There was enough of it already, and the type that they were invoking is kind of this panic, what do I do? It's the type of tension you'd feel in a horror movie when someone's looking at a door on the left and a door on the right, and which one should they choose to escape a killer. Mm-hmm. And the tension of this moment is just the weight of a extraordinarily difficult life choice. And I feel like because they used a single brush to paint all of those moments, it actually did a disservice to this one. And it is because it is such a hard choice. I was lingering on it for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and I just had to hear that tone when I felt like it could have been just about anything else, and it would have sounded more appropriate.
Yep.
So with that out of the way, what did everyone choose? And feel free to expound on it, because I don't think this is a choice that we can just raise our hands.
I'll start. So I sympathize with Chloe, obviously, and I do think it's her right to die if she wants to. But I think everybody has that right. It gets complicated, but we don't need to go into a whole sort of euthanasia question. But I didn't, because I felt even though Chloe has that right, even though it's her choice, it's not her right to put that on me. Like, Chloe can't force me to be the instrument of her death. So I wasn't comfortable with being the person who did that. I didn't think Max would be comfortable with it. So I did not participate.
I can go next.
Mm-hmm.
I accepted and did assist Chloe to the end of her life. And similarly to Pete, Pete and I took some of the same classes in college, like some biomedical ethics classes and stuff. And this topic was discussed heavily, so we're not going to get into it hugely here. That'd be just too big of a topic. But I also think that a person has the right to choose the way that they go, but more from like a sociological perspective as opposed to a biomedical ethical perspective. In that, I think that, and this is supported in some other academia, that taking your own life is one of the most profound demonstrations of free will, or in some interpretation thereof. And because I really support those things and some of my other philosophical worldviews, it made this not an easy choice, but one that wasn't just default, cannot do it. This option was very on the table for me, and after weighing and measuring some of the things, I was kind of hard pressed to pick which one. What pushed me in the direction of accepting was that I think Max would have seen this as sort of like this was essentially an alternate timeline, and I think that Max would have had in the back of her mind that this is sort of a dream sequence or not as real. So I thought that maybe Max would have had more bravery in this alternate reality than in the real timeline.
Noelle?
That's making kind of a big assumption that I think Max might have known that this was an alternate timeline from the start and had been acting in that way. Because I knew it was as the player.
I mean, sorry to cut you off, Noelle, but I just wanted to make sort of a point about Billy's response. Is that sort of a weird ontological argument to make? Because all of these timelines are equally real. There's no way to prioritize one over the other. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how Max would think about it, but metaphysically, that's the reality.
We're not going to get into the real metaphysics here, but the assumption that I was operating under was there is a prime timeline, and instead of creating alternate universes every time Max rewinds, she's just sort of editing the same one. And that goes against a lot of my actual metaphysical worldviews, but I'm operating in that assumption because I think the game devs are thinking that. I'm thinking that Max is thinking that. This is not a critique of them because time travel is fucking hard to talk about and get it right. I mean, people don't get it right.
I'm going to critique that.
It's okay, sure, you can critique all you want, but I am going to say that I think that Max would have gotten wise a little bit and said this is not the timeline that I've been working on, and that's an assumption that I think I'm making on Max's behalf. Me as the player picking up on it. This is an alternate timeline. This is probably a quote unquote dream sequence.
Okay.
No.
I go now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I thought it was very interesting that they give you a third option at first, which is I don't know about this. And I thought that really gave, like, at least me as the player, more of an insight into what Chloe was thinking and her reasoning behind it. Because once I really heard her out and heard how she was, her health was really declining at a pretty fast rate, and she felt as though she was a burden to her parents, and she had all of these very realistic reasons for what she wanted to do. And I feel like at that point it was like a quality of life type of situation where she had none at that point. And not to say that you can't have one in her situation, but her, in like emotionally, she felt bad for her parents. She felt like she was dragging them down. She also felt horrible all the time. She had to be on morphine to just feel better. And because of both the emotional and the physical pain that she was in, like constantly, I felt like it was necessary to help her do what she felt that she needed to do.
Yeah, and that was ultimately my rationale as well. And Pete, my reasoning, I understand the reasoning of you should not necessarily have to be the instrument of this choice. In a perfect world, she makes this choice herself and her parents honor it, or a doctor honors it. But I thought that given the circumstances that the game presents you with, there was not an option of, well, if you want to go with this choice, let's go to a doctor. Or, well, since you want to go with this choice, let's talk to William about it. Had the game presented me with those choices, I would have gone for them. In the universe that we were given, and you can say it's a false choice, this is not what a real world situation would look like, but given the situations that we were actually dealt, I just couldn't look someone who you're supposed to care about in the eye and tell them, like, look, you physically cannot do this yourself. I'm not going to do it. And yeah, it was a tough choice. The game asking you to do that, I thought was, it was tough, and it made you really think about a situation that most people don't think about in their daily lives, but can very quickly become a reality that you have to consider, unfortunately. So
I think all you guys' points are valid. I mean, I really don't think there's an easy right or wrong answer here. I do want to note, though, just from sort of a disability studies perspective, that the game sort of presents both social and personal arguments for Chloe's decision. Whereas, like, if you take a really serious social model of disability, the sort of burden on her parents should never exist. You know what I mean? That shouldn't be an argument one way or another. The only reason that becomes a factor is because the social apparatus isn't there to help her. In the same way that, like, mobility disabilities only become a disability when there are things like ramps and curb cuts.
yeah, it's the situation's really fucked due to a bunch of sociological and societal problems all coming together, and it's a real fucking bummer. But I have seen that conversation before in my real life, so it hit me especially hard. So I just thought that a game even going there at all is it was commendable, and I thought that they held it. They did it pretty tactfully. So what after that
was a weird place to laugh.
Yeah,
just so you know.
I laughed because I was actually reading a comment that's going on in the chat. So people who are listening, I'm not a monster.
Okay.
I'm just reading stuff that's in the Skype chat. So once you come out of this real big bummer. Also, I knew that you were going. Once she shows you the photos, like once you break out the photo album, I'm like, okay, this universe will not stand. So.
Yeah, once
Also,
you know you can time travel through photos.
Yeah. But I feel like that on kind of what Billy was saying, not from like Max's standpoint, but I think from like my standpoint, I was like, oh, well, regardless of what I choose, we're just going to go back and fix it anyway. So like this timeline isn't going to continue.
Yeah, but
so me as the player, I was like, this also isn't going to continue. But at the same time, like I was happy with my choice and I thought that I made the right choice. But at the same time, there's like this unbelievable thing of like, well, this isn't going to be a real choice.
Yeah.
Because we're going to move on.
You can't do that, though. You can't. I know, like, that's totally a reasonable reaction, the same one I had. But my problem then is you can't have a hard, impactful ending and have these false choices along the way, too.
But that's what's been happening throughout the whole game. Like, as the only real choice that had in like all of its weight is the choices you make with Kate Marsh, because you know you can't go back in time. But all the rest of your choices, you know you can go back in time and fix it.
This is why time travel makes tough storytelling.
Or
true life.
Or depending on your final choice at the end of the game, all your choices leading up to that moment will be undone or
do it really matter anyway?
Yeah,
no, I'm just kidding.
This was definitely a moment that once you start allowing the player to go back this far, from this point forward, my decision-making definitely became a little bit more haphazard, because once you've invoked going back that far, anything can be undone, and anything can be redone. So it definitely changed my perception. It actually changed what ending I picked because of this moment specifically. But, this is the hand we were dealt. So... I think that it's kind of to the game's detriment, but luckily the emotional storytelling is strong enough to weather that particular storm, at least for me. But we go back.
I feel as though...
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go, Noelle.
I feel as though they should have taken away your ability to time travel more often than that one time. I feel like any other time, even when you're just interacting with people, like kind of just having a conversation, you can just go back in time and fix whatever conversation. So I feel like it needed to be more specific times where you could change things. Just a little critique.
Yeah, I think that there was room to play with this, or just change the nature of the decisions so that it's not quite so glaring when you go back and undo them.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see. So you once you've gone through this horrible ordeal, you go back to Chloe's room. You snap back to reality, and then you, I believe, you get into detective mode, right? You start putting together a bunch of. Is that?
Yeah, you wake up and Chloe has been like hard at work, and you like hug her and you're like, oh my God, you're here, and she's like, thanks for the morning grope. Okay, cool.
Is this where you get the bulletin board start working?
Mm-hmm.
You start drawing yarn threads and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And you find more. You find a little bit more evidence in David's room that you need to start putting some threads together. Let's see. Then you head back. You head back to the school, and you have to break into Nathan's room to get his cell phone, or to find some clues about Nathan. So you head back to school. When you go into the boys' dorm, Chloe watches the door, and you eventually get into Nathan's room, and you find his cell phone, and you find that his room is just as dark and tortured as you would expect it to be. And he has creepy, objectifying stuff about women also, because he's got all the problems. And then on your way out, after stealing his cell phone, Warren and him get into a fight. Nathan pulls a gun, but Warren headbutts him, and they start fighting. Warren kicks the shit out of him, and then
Warren beats his ass this time.
You get a choice.
Warren has been a true team player.
He is down.
Even when
he's putting his life on the line.
Ride or
like
die.
literally,
Blood
the dude has a
blood.
gun.
You get the choice to either stop Warren from beating him to a bloody pulp, or to allow Warren to beat him to a bloody pulp.
You can hand Warren a knife and say, good job.
You could just hand him the gun that is now on the floor.
Finish him. So
no, you can't.
You don't do that. But you do. How did people go with this one?
I pulled them off.
Yeah, I pulled them off.
I stayed out of it.
I saw Warren was ready to kill. And I was like, nah, man.
Not today.
It's mostly because
25 to life.
I saw him as like Ralphie from A Christmas Story.
So he was going to get his tongue to a pull real soon?
No.
When does Ralphie break a kid's ribs? I remember that part.
It was more like when you see him finally go after Scud Farkas.
Scud Farkas with his yellow eyes.
For just being a total asshole. And it's that time where he finally gets to let go.
So what happened in your timeline?
In my timeline?
Yeah, the one where you just let him go.
Oh, he beats the shit out of Nathan.
He beats the shit out of him.
I didn't. So I pulled him off first. Then I did the beat his ass thing because I just wanted to see what happens to Nathan because fuck that guy. And he punches him several times more than I felt was enough. Like, it's like 30 seconds of just punch, 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 kick. Like, when you stop him, he headbutts him, and then he kicks him a couple of times when he's down. In the one where you don't stop him, he then just gets on his knees and punches him. While he
gets to the ground and pound?
Yes, he goes to the ground game. And Nathan is not trained. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't put his guard up.
Oddly enough.
Doesn't know his Gracie defensives.
He just says, stop it. Stop it. And Warren's just like, no. He doesn't say no, but his fists say no.
3 more pipe bombs.
His fists say no. And then if you don't beat the shit out of him, Nathan picks up his gun, runs away. He's like, you'll be sorry. If you do allow Warren to beat the shit out of him, Warren beats him to a bloody pulp, and he just stays on the ground bleeding and crying. And then you pick up his gun and leave.
So now there are 2 guns. Okay.
And
Good.
And then he says, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so...
What a soft tool.
So when you leave, I only know what happens when Warren's like, thank you for pulling me off of him. Billy, what happens if you allow Warren to bloody his hands With the blood of the,
Uh,
of the
so
defiled?
it m-
Turns out
Nice
Nathan's blood is
Bible
acid.
verse.
beats him to a pulp. Absolutely a one-sided fight.
No, way.
And without getting into some spoilers, not at this point of the story, not at this point of the podcast, but it does affect some decisions later because someone observed this confrontation, and it may not be aware. It may not be as aware of Max at the time, but it affects how some people think about her in later parts of the game. So that's one of the major impacts of this choice.
Wait, it's not Warren or Chloe?
No, it's another character later.
Oh wow.
Notices that this like event happened. I mean, depends who actually stopped them.
No.
Did you all?
We all stopped
Did you
them.
all stop them? Oh,
Yeah.
Stopped him, yeah.
It changes a line of dialogue in episode 5, like at the very end.
Okay.
That is essentially the person who ends up doing, who is revealed to do the killing of the people. Essentially says, hey, you and I, we're actually not
Who
so
said
different.
anything about killing?
Well, whatever,
Just
man.
spoilers. Just spoilers all over the place.
I
I'm
said that at
trying
the
not
beginning of the
to.
podcast. People know.
Fuck it,
People
man.
know.
People
Jesus.
die.
We get it,
people
we get
die.
it. Yeah.
Essentially, the
We're
real
not so
bad
different.
guy of the game, says to Max, you and I, we're not so different. Look at what you let Warren do.
What
You
a
could have
good
stopped it. And
I'm not his keeper. Goddamn.
yeah. Well, anyway, that's one of the most impactful things. There's like a couple of minor dialogue points.
Okay, that's fair.
Maybe-
I was worried that Warren would be like, I wasn't ready for blood.
Or if he was like super ready for blood and like on a
Yeah,
rampage.
next time.
He really wanted to go ape, guys.
That's true.
He made that pretty clear.
Okay, well, he beats the shit out of him, or doesn't, and you leave, and at that point, let's see. Is that when you go
You
back to
Go to
the room
You go back.
and you
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo
you
this
go back
shit?
to your room.
Yeah.
So you go back, you Scooby-Doo some stuff, you figure out some clues.
No one gave you any Scooby snacks, which was really
No,
disappointing.
they just give you more
No, but they are
mysteries.
high. So
That's true. You solve some mysteries, and you find out that David had. There's some pictures that David had that of license plates, and you get some locations, and you get Frank. Oh, you need to get Frank's book first. You need to get Frank's
it's cipher.
cipher. So you have to go confront Frank first.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
go to Frank's hangout by the beach, and hang out, where he goes and hangs out by beached whales.
As you do, as a
It
drug
is
dealer.
our
It's so he can get that nice sperm drugs.
Yeah. So for me, I had
ambergris.
no guns. I did not have a gun with me. Billy, did you have 2 guns? No?
No.
One for each hand.
No? Okay. Because you had Nathan get beaten, and did you pull a trigger on Frank the first time?
You can talk it down so that he well, what happened for me was I talked Chloe down so that he just got shot in the leg.
Oh, I didn't.
He
No,
gets
but how many
stabbed.
guns did you have?
Just the one.
What?
Oh, okay.
You were woefully underarmed.
Frank did not get hurt in my.
Yeah,
playthrough.
me neither.
You
Frank
can
get hurt.
have Frank not get hurt at all, but I think I chose some wrong
Everyone was
dialogue
cool.
options. But
Everyone was
I was
cool.
okay with just having him
Be hurt?
get shot in the leg
Yeah, I stabbed Frank in the leg.
What?
Oh my god.
because he
Yeah,
didn't
but
have a
he
gun.
He pulls a knife.
And then you
like,
skillfully
wrestle
take the
it.
knife.
Yeah, like somehow you disarm him with Max's ninja skills that she developed at some point, and then you stab Frank in the leg.
Look, when you've watched as many Chloes die as Max has,
Yes, you get hard quick.
yeah. So, oh wow.
I didn't know she had time for that kind of training, but
I
okay.
killed Frank the first time though.
What?
Just to watch
You
him
can
die.
kill Frank?
So, yeah, you can kill Frank.
What?
Chloe shoots.
Yeah. I killed Frank the first time also.
The first time for
Well,
me,
because
it
the
ended
dog
fine.
comes and then
Look
and then you
Gino.
shoot him
Yeah,
because the dog is coming.
Pompadour?
I think can you shoot
Yeah.
I think you can shoot the dog too.
What?
I don't think. No, you can't. I don't think you can kill Pompadour in this interaction.
No,
My interactions.
I'm pretty sure.
You might
maybe
be
I'm.
able to. I'm not
Uh,
sure actually, because I know that Papadou comes out and tries
Yeah.
to attack Chloe, and Chloe fires
Pompadour-
the gun. I'm not sure if she just hits Frank or if she also hits.
Yeah,
the
maybe
dog.
Frank dives in front
I
of
was
the
not
boat or
okay with
something.
I have all the decision trees pulled up, and in this particular interaction, Pompadour can't exit this dialogue sequence dead.
Okay,
Okay, cool. So
just Frank.
nope, just Frank.
I just.
But then I rewound, and then everything was fine. We were totally chill.
No, I still stabbed him.
I was cool with him having a knife in his belly. I was chill with Frank at all times. I don't think at any point did he like lose it on me. I thought he had a good soul for a drug dealer.
Did he?
Well, he rescues dogs.
He rescues dogs.
so-
He rescued
he
a
found
dog.
love.
Hey, dog.
He found love. You just need to tell
He
him.
also sells.
I mean,
he also sells
found
drugs
love
to children.
With like a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's probably like in his early 30s.
He's not a great guy.
That's called statutory
He's
rape.
not a
He's not a great
he's not a
man.
great man. But
He's just a
he
good
didn't
man.
need to get stabbed or shot.
He's a bad person with like a handful of morally redeemable qualities.
Yes.
He might have needed to get stabbed.
Look, he probably could have caught a stabbing. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, but I didn't have the heart. To
I mean,
stab
he
him.
did in Pete's reality.
There's a good moment too where, like, after you stab him, Max basically says something like, "Do you want us to call the police?" And he's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? I'm a drug dealer." Like, no, don't call the police.
Yeah, and Frank is real.
Also, why would you offer that when you just stabbed him?
I know. Like, it's a really weird moment.
He's really nonchalant about all of this. You pull a gun on him, he's like, "If you're gonna pull a gun, use it."
Yeah, if you're gonna shoot me, shoot me.
But and
Yeah,
then
he's playing very fast and loose with his
he
life.
doesn't hold it
Yeah.
against you later. Like you could still talk him down from a fight.
So like,
He
I-
just wants beans.
I literally pulled the trigger and we still like ended up cool
Yeah, he's
by the
like,
end of that conversation.
I pulled the trigger and I felt like I had to follow through on something.
you just let Warren.
I pulled the trigger once, might as well do it
If
again.
Warren's bathing in it, let me get some.
I was saying, why couldn't we call Warren back and be like, "Yo, Warren, waste this fool too"?
Yo, Warren, you got a good recipe for another? I got a guy. I need to know what you would do, hypothetically, if he lived in an RV and you wanted to get him out of it. Yeah, so if you non-violently or stab or shoot or kill Frank, you end up with his book of names. And then you can go back to your Scooby-Doo wall or your CSI wall and figure out that Nathan, the day that he drugged Kate, took her to an abandoned barn in the middle of the woods.
Dun, dun,
I will
dun.
say unlocking Nathan's phone was a real pain in the ass, and
Yep,
I did not enjoy that puzzle. All the other puzzles
Nope.
I was fine with.
they were
But
okay.
just-
I didn't think they really added much.
But just entering keys, like different number combinations, was a bummer. So you
Word.
Oh wait, you can wait for which one is
can
this?
figure out
For
what
Nate's cell
Nathan's
phone.
thing is. Like, there's a logical reason why
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's just there are a bunch of things that have solid logical reasons for them to be the code. And
Right,
you
right,
just have
right.
to
'Cause
go
you
through
can
them.
find out what it is.
Yeah, totally. The information's there. It's just I had to exhaust like 20 or 30 completely viable things.
20 or
I
30?
had
That's
that's
not a
too
little
many. It
high.
was probably like 20.
Yeah,
Probably
that's still not
20?
15 to 20. 10
I'd
to
say
20.
like maybe
five?
5?
Yeah, 5 top.
I did all of the
I'd say 2 digits is pushing
okay,
it.
like 200. However many.
I
Right?
spent 3.
Wait, you guys didn't go 0001. 0002. Nathan's a tricky
Not
bastard.
exactly.
What would it be? Let's do the
He's
math.
crafty. It's not
talking.
good. It's not a good
Math.
number. Brute forcing that is a real bummer.
Okay, what's 9 to the 4th?
So you go to the woods, you go to this barn, you break in. It's been in.
It's 6,561 possibilities.
Don't do that, kids. Permutations are a motherfucker. So you go to the woods, you find this old abandoned Prescott family farm because they've been shitty for generations.
For so many generations. They're awful.
They're an institution.
Of shittiness.
Institution of awfulness.
That's my least
Shittiness,
favorite DC
whatever.
like villain gang, the institution of awfulness. So you eventually find a hidden like bunker in the bottom of this barn. And you can figure out the password by like again random. It's not random, like there are 3 buttons that are clearly more worn than others. And you can use those to figure it out. It's also one of the number combinations that was on Nathan's like scribble pad. So you can.
How do you remember that?
Because when I couldn't figure out what the hell the code was,
You just memorized everything?
The guide said either go with the buttons that are worn down, or it was actually the code if you remember what it was. So that's how I figured it out. But you get in there and you find this creepy ass room. Full of at first it's like, oh, this is a storm bunker, like there's food.
Yeah, it's full of rations.
Food and rations and stuff like that. Oh, that's kind of okay.
Probably more guns somewhere.
There is a gun in there.
Yeah.
Though you don't find it here. You can find it later. But you eventually find just pictures of young women bound in duct tape all over the place. An unsettling like piece of art of a person with like a slit neck with like stuff coming out of it, and just a whole bunch of real questionable stuff. It's a pristine.
Yeah.
It's also a pristine photo like setup. Like there's
very fancy equipment.
Very fancy equipment. A gigantic like poster
Light thingy. There's a backdrop. Yeah.
Poster printer. Like a very high-end poster printer, and you can find a bunch of emails about Nathan's mental problems, a bunch of comments from his dad saying that he's like a disappointment and a shitty human being,
Which he is.
And he is.
Yep.
And this is
an email from his psychologist.
Yeah, saying if you're not going to listen to me when I say your kid's got problems, I'm not going to see him anymore.
Yeah, like your kid, I care about him, but like you need to get your shit together.
Yeah.
To the parents, clearly,
Yeah, to the
not
parents.
to Nathan.
And you eventually find a bunch of binders full of pictures of other women who, like Kate, were abused. And there's one binder. Well, you find Kate's binder, and then you find Rachel Amber's binder. And in the binder of Rachel pictures, you find a picture of her, like, being dropped into a ditch. And Chloe immediately recognizes this location as the junkyard, and she remembers where it is in the junkyard. And so you skedaddle. You head straight to the junkyard, and in a cool moment, like, you find Rachel, but the place where you find her is actually where Max found that deer the first time you're in the junkyard. So we kind of get the full-on...
Yeah, Max's Patronus.
It was at this moment that I thought that the deer was a symbol of Rachel, that Rachel was kind of a spirit
animal.
The deer comes from Max and Chloe's snow globe.
Yeah. I guess it's a through line there, too. I thought the actual deer was kind of a symbol for Rachel, but, like, the deer as a symbol was more of a Max's spirit animal kind of thing. So, like, that specific deer that she sees, I thought was a Rachel thing.
Okay. Well, maybe.
I thought that made a little bit of sense with Billy's mention from last podcast that rewinding does not rewind that deer, that it's kind of out of time in a weird way.
Yeah, no, it's definitely significant. I just don't know if the Rachel parallel holds.
Yeah, I guess it could still
I
be.
could see it being a Rachel parallel in that at this point when we find out that Rachel is in fact dead, no amount of rewinding can save Rachel. If it's going to be a Rachel parallel, that's where it clicks for me.
Sure.
All right, fair enough.
So you find Rachel, and we haven't talked much about the soundtrack of this game or the licensed music, but the licensed music I think really hits home the moment you find Rachel. And Chloe's reaction is just gut-wrenching.
Brutal. Oh my gosh.
Just like the line, "I loved her, how can she be dead?" is...
Yeah.
Ugh, I just gotta...
Like, what kind of world does this?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's when she's digging and you find it's like clothes at first, and she's worried and she's like, it can't be. And she goes a little deeper and then the stink comes out.
Ugh.
It's just, ugh. Yeah, even...
You can... It kind of made me throw back to other times in the junkyard where if you explore it in like chapter 2, you can find other articles of clothing. And it made me wonder, like, is this not the first time a person's been brought here?
Yeah, and it's a really messed up situation, and that whole scene, it really hits home, I think. I think it's one of the most well done. You know, when we talked about the thriller elements of Firewatch and how they did not hit home, I thought this game took what Firewatch was trying to do and did it better in terms of incorporating thriller elements, and it did it like 2 years earlier.
Yeah, but I think the counterpoint would be I do think that Firewatch maybe does better with some of those more mundane elements, if you know what I mean. Like the everyday sort of drama or disappointment that sort of permeates that game.
Yeah, so this whole sequence I thought was a little bit better done than Firewatch, and what can you really do there? It seemed like Firewatch, part of that problem was just outside influences or running out of time or budget, but the whole thriller element really gripped me the whole time in this game, which I think was really a testament to Don't Nod. So with that, we are going to head to the Vortex Party, but the Vortex Party, and we did not budget enough time to keep talking about Life is Strange.
There's just so much to say.
There's a lot of things to say about episode 5. So I know at the beginning I said episodes 3 to 5, but we will, unfortunately or fortunately, have to break this up into a third part. So
Woo!
we will be coming back at the hottest party.
Gino just happened.
The hottest party of the season.
Gino just happened to pick like the most culturally dense and relevant game for like every socially sensitive topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I gave you a choice. We could have been playing Magic Pendulum right now.
We could have that would have been like a half a podcast. Like, isn't it cool to draw things? All right, next week, guys.
Well, you'd be surprised at how many tough topics. It deals with depression. It deals with suicide. Yeah, Magic Pendulum.
Magic Pendulum?
I'm lying.
Oh,
Doesn't
okay.
deal with anything. Deals with drawing monsters and having them fight to... Well, I guess it might. I've never really gotten that far into Magic Pendulum. We'll find out another day.
There's a real deep second half turn.
Yeah. I keep trying to draw happy clouds, but whatever I draw turns into shit. Turns into sad stuff.
Like
Literal
Digimon
shit.
World.
Yes.
Your Digimon just evolves into a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Poopmon. Okay.
Jump down.
With that.
With that. Great way to end
Great
it.
way to
guys.
end
All
this emotionally...
And it's strong.
This emotionally fraught episode of Life is Strange.
Poop's funny.
Thank you, Billy.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, man. This is a hella deep listen. So tune in next time and we'll wrap up the Life is Strange podcast. God damn.
Thank you, Pete.
Yeah. Always a pleasure talking to you guys, especially when we get heavy stuff to talk about. And do make sure you come back around next time because shit's gonna get real. I promise.
He's so mad about time travel.
Oh my gosh.
And
chaos theory, that's gonna come up too.
thank you, Noelle.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. And apparently it's going to continue being fun next week.
Yes. And
Yeah, you're not even so much a guest star anymore. You're not like a permanent fixture in the podcast.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you should just add my name to
just all future
The
podcasts. That
credit
works for me.
authors.
If your schedule is free enough, we can always have. Now you're gonna need access.
Yeah,
You're gonna need access to a Nintendo. You'll need access to a PS3, probably a PC,
Probably a PlayStation.
Probably.
Oh,
We'll work
okay.
this out. Don't worry
Oh.
about it.
I have a Mac. How does that sound?
Great.
4, but that's fine. We'll work through this together. Just a reminder, if you want to get in touch with the show, at Deep Listens Pod, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our site, and then deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So, till next time, thank you, listeners. Peace!